So are injuries becoming a real issue here as Georgia gets ready for this 21 season? Having covered this program for a long time, you're going to get injuries in the preseason, and so far none of them have been season-ending that I'm aware of. Most of them are, injuries that would keep you out of a scrimmage. But on Saturday, you had, I'm going off the top of my head here, you had five starters who would start against Clemson who were not there. Warren Erickson at center, Eric Gilbert at receiver, Keiris Jackson at receiver, Jermaine Burton at receiver, and then John Fitzpatrick. So that's almost half of your starters on offense. And then you have some banged up guys on the defensive side of the ball too, although it's not as severe as the offensive side. Here's what Kirby had to say about this the other day. We have a long way to go. We are a little beat up at wideout. We have some injuries, so we don't have all of the guys out there. We have a lot of guys injured all around, but this time of year I think everybody does. But the most important thing is for us to get some reps tomorrow, get healed up, and we'll get back to work on Monday. I don't think Georgia practiced on Sunday between, but maybe they did. I misunderstood a little bit of what he was saying. I think he was saying they're getting back to practice on Monday. But when you start talking about the amount of players who were injured for the Dogs, who are injured for the Dogs, and then you also don't have, two players in George Pickens and Dominic Blaylock who are missing as well. I mean, you're starting. Georgia's top five receivers are not out there right now, and that's not going to work. As good as Darnell Washington is, he's can't make up for all of the issues that happen if you're not with your receivers, because your DBs are not getting challenged, and then that's a problem. On the defensive side of the ball, it's not as bad, but there are some injuries there. So that's my question: is are injuries becoming a real issue at Georgia? You've got guys like Warren Erickson, who is going to start missing days of practice. He's out there, but he's not practicing the way that you would, not scrimmaging. No really reason to risk that. Keiris Jackson got a knee scope earlier in the year. We didn't report that he had a knee scope at Dog Post, but we did report that he was, I believe, on crutches earlier this summer, and that was something that Georgia decided to do at the time because they knew that they felt like he would be back for the Clemson game. The people that I talk to do not think that these injuries are serious, but having gone through practices in college myself where guys are banged up, it messes with the lineup. I mean, if you're with the ones and all of a sudden, if you're with the twos and all of a sudden you get elevated to the ones, the pressure's on for you to compete and learn and perform. But it also goofs up the twos. So everything kind of has an effect from one to the next. But do you think that many starters out is a concern for the preparation for the start of the season? I think we all know, looking at the schedule, that the first game is the most challenging one. Clemson's the most gifted team that Georgia will play in the regular season. I'm not with Florida being in the same category as Clemson in terms of talent. So Georgia can lose both those games, but Clemson's got far more gifted players than Clemson does. That's for sure. So this is really a critically important game, and that's why everybody's kind of acting like that. Is they know that there's a lot on the line here. I mean, you go from Clemson to UAB, Carolina, and Vanderbilt. I mean, the likelihood of Georgia losing those last three games before October rolls in, it's just hard to believe. And Alabama, Birmingham, Carolina, and a trip to Vanderbilt, it's just hard to see them losing those games, or even those games being super competitive. So that's why right now really matters, because at that point you will have won or lost the game against Clemson. It will have set the tone for that week and the narrative from that point moving forward. It doesn't mean you'll win or lose moving forward, but if you're missing time right now with not the bulk of your starters on offense, but a lot of them, and certainly the bulk of your receivers, what does that mean? how quick does Kyrus Jackson need to get back out there? That's a good question, because I think he's relatively close to going. Jermaine Burton, same question. How long does Georgia hold off on getting those guys out there? What is the risk ratio or dichotomy that you're looking out there? How long do you not play Jermaine Burton? He's a guy who needed to get going last year. A.D. Mitchell has had a big beginning of his time at Georgia. Ladd McConkey has had a good run, from what I understand. So those two guys have never played. And they can be really good or whatever for their position or their situation, but you need the best players you've got out there against UAB, nevertheless, Clemson, because this is about continuity and so forth. And so I just want y'all to, answer below. Do you think it's a real issue right now for the Dogs? If you've not gone over the website, please make certain to. We've got a great deal right now, $2 for 2 months. That's a heck of a deal. Just go to dogpost.com. I do think there's a lot of, the reaction after the practice was, I've used the term lukewarm. I think it was adequate. I think most of the time people cheer for the offense. And so it leads to this sort of situation where if the offense doesn't have an explosive day, people get concerned, particularly with this particular offense that has been so good, and we've been told that they are so good all of the time. But they're dealing with these number ones from the defense, which are not easy to deal with. I was talking with someone earlier today. I said, Cedric Van Pran Granger is dealing with Jordan Davis, etc., all of the time. And I said, would you want to deal with Jordan? And the person said, I wouldn't want to deal with any of those guys. So, but, Warren Erickson needs to get back in there. Cedric Van Pran can be ready to play, but I expect Erickson to be the starter going into Clemson, snapping with maybe his right hand, or he might not have a cast anymore by the time that game comes around. I expect Kyrus to be out there to play. I totally expect Jermaine Burton to be out there playing. What's going to happen with Dominique Blaylock, that's harder to know. That might not be game one. We don't know. George Pickens obviously is not going to be game one. And what the long-term or the near-term will be for Eric Gilbert, we can't know that right now either. And he's not injured, so he could come back tomorrow or, when class starts, or it could take time. Eric's situation is a lot different than everyone else's. I'd encourage you to go over to the site, check it out. We've got a great deal. Again, $2 for 2 months. We'll see you on the website.